With the Coyotes finally signing Matt Dumba, as well as having just one contract slot left, I think it's finally time to go ahead and do a lineup projection for the 2023-24 season.
You're Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the show, everybody. This is Locked On Coyotes, your number one daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes. I am your host, Robyn Leonio, alongside Matthew Jacobson. I want to thank everyone for making this show your first listen every day. We are free and available everywhere you get podcasts. We got a great show on today's episode. We are doing some lineup projections for the Arizona Coyotes upcoming season. I guess, Matt, let's just go ahead and say things that first and straight, as a, overall taking a look at the entire roster, the talent of this team versus the talent of the team 2 years ago. Big, huge.
You mean the glorified AHL team? You mean that? Look, I love Louis Eriksson. I do not regret jumping into the Louis Eriksson meme. I do not regret paying $200 whatever for that Louis Eriksson Adidas Kachina. Don't regret a single thing. That was a lot of fun. All right, but let's not pretend that was a good team. Let's not pretend.
Yeah, no, that was just freaking getting bad players for way overpaid. Way overpaid. And that's done. And they're actually, this team is actually looking to shape up to be pretty good. And
will they be a playoff team, Robyn? Is this team, are they going to the playoffs?
They'll tease us. Tease us, but no.
We're on the complete same page here. I said it before. Robyn also just reaffirmed it there. They'll tease us. I still stand by. They'll be in a playoff spot for like 2 weeks. They had it won for like 48 hours last year, and they should have been nowhere near. They will look like it. They'll tease some greatness. Young, inexperienced team still needs to kind of build themselves up. They are not ready for that, but it will be fun. And who knows, if they're in a wild card race, they might not sell off at the deadline, and we could have a little bit of anxiety heading into the end of the season. Just a little bit. A tiny little bit. They're not a playoff team yet, but they should be better.
You mean Coyotes fans could experience a little bit of torture this year?
We experience torture every year. What are you talking about?
The better kind of torture. The better kind of torture.
Well, with the first line consisting of, wow, I'm getting really good at transitions, probably Clayton Keller, Jack McBain, and Nick Schmaltz. I just wanted to see a reaction. It's Barrett Hayton. Everyone knows Barrett Hayton is right now the first line center. It was tough to see him go through. Was it 14 or 20 games last year where he couldn't find the net. He couldn't find even a secondary assist.
He was struggling, and it was an extension of his struggles from last season, like a bit of a struggle from last season too. And it was around that time. It's funny because I think this show has done episodes on Barrett Hayton, I want to say 2 or 3 times over the course of just the last season alone. And the first one that we did was around that time when he was slumping. And it's is it around time in which maybe you just give up on the Barrett Hayton experiment? We were talking about that around then, and he's really improved since then. It was you know what? Yeah, first line center Barrett Hayton. I think that works.
Now, I don't think he's a first-line center on a playoff team. I do want to put some asterisks on this, but the season prior, 21-22, 60 games, 10 goals, 14 assists, 24 points, right there in the middle six, working his way up. And I was fine with that. And when the offense wasn't there at the start of last season, I'm going to be consistent on my old podcast as well as on my personal channel. I said it. Okay, well, maybe he's just a third-line center then. It sucks. The offense is gone. But he's still doing all the little things right. He's still playing well defensively. He's still decent in the faceoff circle. Then, by the end of last season, remember, he didn't score for about the first 20 games. All right? It was a while. 82 games, plays all 82 for the first time in his career. 19 goals. So, borderline 20-goal scorer. 24 assists, 43 points. he looked phenomenal with Clayton Keller. He scored a little over a half a point per game. And that's not accounting for all those games where he didn't score. It was more accurate to say it was close to what, like 0.6 points a game, like his actual pace. He should probably be a 50, maybe 60-point scorer, which is solid. That's a good number.
And I think in this case, in this upcoming season, assuming this is actually the case, he's gonna have Clayton Keller and Nick Schmaltz on his wings, which will really, really help his numbers.
Yeah, and Clayton Keller and Nick Schmaltz have that natural chemistry. Nick Schmaltz pretty much, I just want to pull up his stats real quick just so I make sure I have the actual number refresher. But 59 points 2 years ago, 58 points last year in 63 games, both years, 23 goals and 36 assists, 22 goals, 36 assists, consistent 20-goal score, about a 60-point score right in there. And if he can get healthy and stay healthy, he'll be easily 60, 65 points. Very solid player. And with them pushing towards competing, I'm totally okay with keeping him on the roster. Because if they're ahead of schedule, which it feels like they are, he's someone that can help that right there when they're trying to start, not going to the playoffs yet, but start winning, start building the winning culture, and really help develop the actual core of the team to being veterans. I think he is phenomenal on that right side, Clayton Keller on the left, and keeping Barrett Hayton in the middle, because Barrett Hayton and Clayton Keller played well together. Nick Schmaltz and Keller have played well together for years now. That is a solid first line. And it was very solid down the stretch last year. That is a first line that is not top 10 in the league, but I would probably put it at least around 15.
This
15
is
to 18.
Yeah, you're right. This is, but what's interesting is that I'll say, and I'll say this: it's definitely, like I said, it's maybe like top 15 around there for the first line. But what's going to make this team really fun to watch? I mean, yeah, you got Clayton Keller on the first line and everything like that. That's fantastic. But I think it's the second and third line that can really make things interesting.
Yes, 100%. And the fact that we actually have a first line that is going to be good, talented, not just good for a Coyotes roster. I genuinely stand by. And look, some people are going to hear top 15 and think I'm underrating. Some are going to hear top 15 and think I'm overrating, which probably means that that's probably right where they should be, between 15 and 18, somewhere in there. It's good to have a good first line. It's good to not worry about that. It's good to not be, and also it's good to not have your first line be the only decent line, because I'm probably going to surprise some people. I'm not putting Krause and Michelli on the second line. For me personally,
okay,
I think rounding out that top 9 is perfect, because while I was watching listening to PD talk earlier today, as we're recording, earlier today about Matias Michelli and his strengths and how it kind of feels like he works even better with those different kind of offset matchups. Mm-hmm. So having him round out the top 9 should be perfect, and it shouldn't really cut down his production at all. It probably would be right consistent where it's at. I want to see Gunther in the top 6. I think Gunther can do it. I think this kid is really good. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, because I want to keep Bukestad with Krause and Michelli, that's probably my third line, but it might be the second line going into the season. Probably Zucker, Gunther, and McBain, because McBain could be a really good middle 6 guy. And while he did work well with Krause and Michelli down the stretch, Bukestad works better with them, and I don't really want to break that up.
That's interesting. I'm trying to think how you would have that. Yeah, I mean, I would say, I'm not sure how I feel about McBain being second. I mean, I think he's still good enough for it, but I feel like he probably bought it.
Or Cooley, because it depends on where Cooley's going to start. Cooley will not get the first line minutes up front, but do you think he starts second line? Do you think him and Gunther would work well together?
I think it's worth, obviously we still have to see how he looks in training camp, but to me, it just really seems like having Logan Cooley on the second line just seems right.
Which is fair. I just don't know where they would start him because I know they're going to want to be a little conservative. It's going to depend on his training camp. If he comes out and has a phenomenal training camp, phenomenal preseason, I'm not going to say first line, but like he might sniff some reps with Clayton Keller earlier than not. But I still don't see him starting off. So I'm just not sure where they'd want to put him. And I definitely blanked Cooley just a little bit. So I did not mean to imply he would have been the fourth line center. That was not what the intention was there. But you have him at second with Zucker, a veteran, and another young kid who has a really good shot in Dylan Guenther, or have that be your third line. But I kind of feel like second line minutes might work better there just because you want to elevate Cooley, you want to elevate Guenther. And Zucker is really good in terms of coming off of a 30-goal season last year. I was shocked that the Coyotes got him because he's not the reclamation project. I was like, oh yeah, reclamation. No, 30 goals last year.
I think we're definitely on that page though, just in general, where the three that you mentioned are definitely middle six, second, third line. Cooley, I feel like Zucker should definitely be there, and Guenther. I think past that makes it really interesting on however you want to mix and match second and third line.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough. I feel like
we actually have the depth to make it tough. We actually have it's a tough conversation now, isn't it?
Now here's the question: where do you slot in Alex Kerfoot?
We can get into that after a word from the sponsor. We get to talk about FanDuel. Bada bing! I'm getting good at this. Anyway, all right. Football season is about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long. Because now when you bet on the Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. That is ridiculous. Everyone's going to go with the Chiefs. Come on now. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get a bonus bet for every victory. You know what? For the lulz, we should bet on the Cardinals and see if we can get a bonus bet every time they win the 2 times this season. Anyway, you use your bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon.
So let's go ahead and talk about Alex Kerfoot, Matt, because I feel like that was a name that I think neither of us had mentioned up until this point. And I was just looking at the roster and I'm like, oh yeah, you just can't ignore him either because he's also pretty solid depth piece.
He's solid. He's coming off of a Toronto team where obviously some of the numbers might be a little inflated, but he's played all 82 the last 2 seasons. He started off his career in Colorado, and of his 6 career seasons, he's played in 78 or more games 4 times. Pretty reliable, and also I'm not going to touch the lockout shortened seasons, but off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure he played all games in the 2021 shortened season, and I don't know about 2020, but he's still playing 90% plus. Reliable guy. First 2 years, back-to-back 40-point seasons. 2 years ago, he had a 51-point season. Then he had a 32-point season last year, 10 goals, 22 assists. It seems like he'll hover at this point, probably around the 10 to 13 goal mark, which is fine. You give me 30, 35 points, that's fine. He's someone that will probably be up and down the lineup, but this does give an interesting conversation because if Dylan Guenther struggles, I do believe he's old enough to go to the A. There's plenty of opportunities where if Guenther goes down for a little bit to work on certain things, maybe put on some more weight, maybe work on this or that hole in his game that they're seeing earlier on. Kerfoot just slots in there, solid middle 6 guy, get you some depth scoring. And I know there's been a decent amount of Toronto fans being like, oh, he sucks. That's just something Toronto fans do. It is what it is. If they're saying a player sucks, they're probably not that bad. But the fact that they have so much depth, 14 forwards, and off the top of my head, just my gut, Liam O'Brien is a healthy scratch, except for in those lineups where you need a little more grit. And Travis Boyd, I could see, even though it's probably going to be Carconi, first line center Travis Boyd, even though Carconi will likely be the one getting the healthy scratches because Boyd is a vet, I would not be surprised if they tried to move away from Boyd, trade him off this season, because we've already gone over our top 9. And again, young kids might have, Gunther go up or down a little bit. I do think he's NHL ready. He's an NHL player, but he's going to have his struggles. It is what it is. It's not anything against Gunther. But unless we see a little more movement like that, Kerfoot be on the 4th line with McBain and either Boyd or Carcone, and normally the veterans get the priority when it comes to lineups. I would not be surprised if they're trying to get rid of Boyd, or if you see like relatively early on in the season, Boyd to be an odd man out, because O'Brien's going to be a guy that's going to be a healthy scratch. I don't see them trying to trade him. You need him for what he is for certain matchups, but not a regular in the lineup guy. I feel like Kerfoot's probably better than Boyd, so Kerfoot would probably slot in. McBain's really good. Carcone and Boyd. Who do you have as getting the edge there on the 4th line?
Oh, it's tough because, like, I mean, you kind of said it perfectly. Like, when regards to Boyd is, he's got the the veteran experience. He's out there. He can help, help coach up some of the young ones. But you also can't just overlook the past couple seasons that Michael Carcone has had in Tucson. Mm-hmm. He has had phenomenal, I think, is even an understatement for what he's been able to do in the AHL. He's literally been fantastic. And I feel like you just cannot overlook that. And I feel like he deserves to get rewarded a little bit more and actually get some minutes.
And he also, just to cut in real quick, he has the right mindset. He was like, he expressed a little bit of frustration at not getting more NHL time, but then he's like, I still have to earn it. I still have to prove it. He is the kind of guy that I genuinely feel like, he will prove it. Like with Tucson, he's been there for 3 seasons, 2021, 35 games, 25 points, 15 goals, 10 assists. Very good season. 21-22, 48 games. He played 21 for Arizona that year with 6 points. For Tucson, 48 games, 24 goals, 17 assists, 41 points. And last year in 65 games, so he missed 3 like technical AHL games. He had 9 for the NHL, but I think it's like 67 or 68 games as Roberta's play. 31 goals, 54 assists, 85 points, and he led the AHL in points. He's been putting in that work. If this team, let's just say, I'll use Gunther is struggling, he gets sent down, and Kerfoot is injured. Just as an example, I would not be surprised if Carcone got top 6 minutes. I would not be surprised if he got a little bit of love. I just don't see, with the current roster construction, with how there's a lot of veterans in front of him.
It's hard to slot him in.
Yeah.
At this moment. And it's tough. It really is a tough decision. I feel like he'll definitely get the minutes. And I feel like I said, it's hard for anybody to overlook his career trajectory already. Mm-hmm. It's amazing when we say that, with the talent, the better talent that we have on this team, that it's that he slots in easy. It's not that easy.
Do you want to know what this team reminds me of? And it's not quite the same extreme, all right? It's not, but it's a similar concept. All of these guys in this roster can score. Every single player, minus Liam O'Brien, can get you at least 10 goals this season. Yes. Minimum. Genuinely feel that way. I do not think we'll have a single forward with less than 10 goals this year. Every single one of these lines should be able to score. So if the first line is struggling for 4 or 5 games, the second, third, fourth line should be able to pick up more of that slack. You're not going to be as top heavy. They're balancing out more. And again, you're going to have Bukestad played really well with Krause and Michelli. Didn't really feel like he played that much better with other combinations. That's kind of one of those, I think Petey said it pretty well. Like, you got something special there, don't touch it. Like, just kind of leave that one be.
Right.
Keller and Schmaltz, you're going to get what you need out of that. If Zucker doesn't work with Gunther, move Kerfoot up. Maybe it doesn't work with Kerfoot, you can move Carcone up. You should be able to have some flexibility to get the guys where you need them to get that depth scoring. And it kind of feels like the way I build NHL teams in the video games, where it's like, I don't care about a grinding line. I don't care about, I'm going to set this guy out there to hit. No, I turn injuries off so everyone hits. But all 4 of my lines, I want to score. And I can see all 4 of these lines scoring. Not 20 goals each. That's unrealistic. Not every player can be a 20-goal scorer on a Coyotes roster. But I can see what last year it was Schmaltzy, Keller, and Krauser. I can see at least 2 more 20-goal scorers in this roster. At least with the improvements you're seeing. And Hayton really should have been a 20-goal scorer last year. He almost had it. He was right up against there. He pulled an Alex Galchenyuk in 2018-19 where he was right there, but you're that one number shy, so he technically can't call you a 20-goal scorer. But he should be able to get over that line this year.
Before I want to touch a little bit on the defense. Before I would do that, though, I do want to I'm actually kind of like brought this up because I was kind of curious in doing some comparisons. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to tell you the lineup that I see on projections from Daily Faceoff.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to tell you and then you're going to tell me what you think. And I mean, you guys already know, those that are listening already know, so you can draw some comparisons to see how similar or how different our projections are versus what Daily Faceoff has projected. Mm-hmm. So Daily Faceoff, first line, Keller, Hayton, Schmaltz.
Yep, that's pretty unanimous.
Yep, exactly. Second line, Machelli, Cooley, Zucker.
Nope, I hate it. I hate that because it's just going off a depth chart. It's not going off of where the chemistry is.
Yeah, I hear that. Third line, they put out Kerfoot, Bukestad, Gunther.
I just don't see that working. It could because Bukestad, again, he had that connection with Machelli and Krause, but could he have the same effect with Gunther? I don't know. I don't know.
And fourth line is McBain, Boyd, Krause.
Yeah, no. Let's go on the defense before I yell. Let's go to defense before I yell.
Yeah,
Krauser is a top 9 anchor.
Like said, they did it based off of depth and not based off chemistry, which I think. I mean, yeah, sure. Some teams can get away with that, but I feel like the Coyotes, you really need chemistry to focus on that. But let's go
the most out of your players. Like, this is a roster that you need to squeeze. Anyway, defense, they have 8 defenders. I'm just gonna say right now, I don't see Soderstrom making the opening day roster. He will eventually play. I think he's still raw. He's still raw, a little more raw than he should be. 22 is like, yeah, defensemen take longer, but I do feel like he probably should be a little further along than he is. But his defensive game is getting better. Don't see him making the opening roster. I think your top 4 looks like I'm going to go Moser, Dursey. Moser's very, very defensively responsible. Dursey needs to improve on that, but he's good offensively, and Moser can move the puck. I think that works phenomenally. Dumba with Valimaki. Valimaki also strong defensively, can move the puck okay, and Dumba's been known to have a good shot. I know he had that shoulder injury. Hopefully he's past that and he can get a little more off, but also he still is good defensively. I think that's a good top 4. And then your bottom pairing, probably you might see Travis Dermott play with Troy Stecher and then have Josh Brown be your 7th defenseman. And that is not bad. Josh Brown is a very serviceable 6/7th defenseman.
Yeah, I think that would work out. I'm trying to look at, based off, their shots. You know what's amazing? I feel like the Coyotes have more right shot defensemen.
Yep,
than
they do. They do. If you account for Victor Soderstrom, they do.
I'm thinking, like, in a league where right shot defensemen are incredibly sought after and rare, the Coyotes have more right shots than left shots.
Yep. Yeah, and because remember we needed more right shots back in 2018-19. So that's my first. That's why I keep going back. That's my first season I started covering. We had a lack of right shots. Even last year, to a degree, we had a bit of a lack of right shots. Now we kind of have the embarrassment of riches. And even if because I think Stecher is an everyday NHLer, so I don't want to disrespect him because I think he played very serviceably defensively. Right. No offense there, but that's not what you're asking of Troy Stecher. That's not a criticism. And I think Dermott, who's had some injury problems, they're going to look to him to fill that 6th defenseman role. But if he ends up sliding to 7th defenseman, Brown and Stetcher, that's a pretty defensively sound. Brown's a little bigger and more burly, whereas Troy Stetcher, I think, is just a little bit better of like a technical defender. I don't know if that's the correct term, but hopefully you understand the concept that I'm trying to get across. I wouldn't mind that either. Dermott is definitely going to be a bit of a wild card because the injury history, but if they were comfortable enough to sign him, I think he probably ends up playing, and he's still technically on injured reserve, but I think he ends up playing and Soderstrom gets sent down.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I feel like it's the only thing that the most logical, especially since Soderstrom is still waivers exempt, so you can kind of send him down and bring him back up as you please. So there's no risk.
Mm-hmm. And also he gets more time because, look, Soderstrom is not good enough right now to be in that top 4. And that is, I'm not trying to be mean. It's just, that's where his game is at currently. What is he going to learn playing, bottom pair minutes that he wouldn't learn more by playing top pair in the AHL? We're not talking about he would be a depth guy in the AHL. He would be your top pair defenseman in the AHL. You get more meaningful minutes, more meaningful matchups. You can learn more from that. While there is a cap on what you can learn at the AHL level, I don't think he's hit that cap yet, and he'll probably learn more playing in the AHL in a prominent role than being a third pair defenseman. And then when you have injuries or trades later on in the season, once they're out of the playoff race, you can call up and, hey, here's what you learned at Tucson, show it here.
Yeah, I really hope, and I mean, he's been in Tucson for a number of years already, but I just really hope that, like, you can set up, like, maybe like a little more personal time with John Slaney and try to figure out, what works better for him as a defenseman. Because that's what Tucson is for. It's for development. Potvin, head coach, he's more of that offensive focus. He's going to be like his main, focus and his expertise is on those forwards. So he's not really. So that's why he has John Slaney. He's focusing on those defense. I just really hope that Slaney can get to Soderstrom and get him to be to where I think a lot of people, I'm not saying where everyone expects Soderstrom to be, but that can at least help raise him up enough to be NHL ready.
Yeah, because defensively, I feel like he's become more sound. I feel like the decision-making has gotten better. I feel like he's a decent skater. I feel like he's got the good aspects you need. I've finally accepted his offense is probably not going to come back in the context of that shot, because his mindset when he got his opportunity, I think it was in 2021. It was Talkett's last year. It was when Capobianco was struggling and he got called up and he's like, hey, what would you do in this situation? That I would shoot the puck. And I love that confidence. I love that attitude. He did it for like a game or two. And then he lost all confidence in the shot. And while down the stretch last year, his passing was more efficient. He was moving the puck around well. And I appreciated that a lot. I've had to kind of come to terms with he's not going to be that same player we all expected, but there is still a good second or third pair defenseman here. I just don't think it's this season. I just don't think he's NHL ready yet. Even 3 more months in Tucson could get him there, but I just don't see him making the roster.
There. He's really, really close. He really is.
He's getting better. And then goaltending, Vejmelka Ingram. We're not going to waste your time. It's Vejmelka Ingram.
Yeah. I don't think there's really any other bit to it. You can't really. I mean, you can argue that they just focus tandem, make it tandem, but
yeah, even it out a little more. Give Ivan a few games, later on down the line. But obviously, he's going to have to do a little more in Tucson. I could do an entire thing on the goaltending. We can talk about that later on in the week or next week or something. We got some stuff to talk about with goaltending, but for the actual NHL tandem, it's Vejmelka and Ingram, and if one of them gets hurt, you probably have Ivan come up and carry the slack. Unless it's a minor injury, then Ivan would stay down and keep playing as the starter because you're not going to call him up to ice him. It's not good for goalies.
No, exactly. And I feel like especially for a developing goaltender like Ivan, he needs the reps. He needs to continue to go. And that's why it's so hard for goalies to develop in the NHL, because like you have the NHL, the AHL, and even down to the ECHL. There's only so much spots for them to focus on development.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're not wrong. But I think that's all I got for the lineup projections. I think we both agree O'Brien and Boyd are probably the odd men out. Nothing against either. O'Brien's a role guy, and Boyd, I just think, in all reality, Kerfoot's a better Boyd. So he kind of feels like a Boyd replacement. And Boyd's been, last year was always on the third, fourth line anyway. And then our pairings, I think we're pretty agreed on the top four, regardless. If not, the top six.
That top four is just like, I mean, you can swap like Dumba and Dursey, but like,
yeah, you could. And it's going to be great having Dumba to help with the younger guys with the leadership, because he's very valuable with his leadership and what he brings off the ice as well. To where, like, I think even if his play continues to decline, there's still something valuable there, and he does bring something good to the table on this defense.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's all we have. Do you have anything final you want to say, outside of just this? Anything else you just want to add before we close things off?
Yeah, there was no dog barking in the background. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, that's going to be it for today's episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. If you like what you heard, don't forget to leave a review, like, comment, subscribe if you have yet to already. We're available everywhere you get your podcasts, including on YouTube and the Sirius XM radio app. Also, if you want to listen to if you listen to some other shows within our network, I highly encourage you guys check out the Locked On NHL Prospects show. They got a countdown of episodes going on with the top teams with the top prospects in their system. Where do the Coyotes sit on their rankings? You'll find out if you listen to their show. So be sure to check it out. Back here on Locked On Coyotes, though. Interact with us on social media. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/LockedOnCoyotes, and on Twitter, the app that's now formerly known as Twitter, actually, at LO_Coyotes. I'm personally at Robyn_Leonio. Matthew Jacobson is at the AZ Sports Guy. Interact with us, ask a question you might have. We might answer right back, or on a future episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to today's episode. Hope you guys staying safe out there. Hope you guys staying healthy. And don't forget to howl on.
Your Locked On Coyotes, your daily